Aerospace, formed JN Aerospace in 2019. JMA is a startup ecosystem whose primary purpose is to assist the aerospace industry in scaling up. JMA is an evangelist for the aerospace industry, especially the drone ecosystem, and strives to link the dots to complete the picture. JMA has worked tirelessly to raise awareness and provide infrastructure support, test site access, provide skilled aerospace workforce, provide business solution, train students for Industry 4.0, and foster industry academic collaborations. JMA so far has conducted more than 200 workshops, professional talks, webinars, and seminars in numerous top institutions, colleges, and organizations to help give an insight into the industrial working of the drone and aerospace sector. JMA has currently trained 61 pilots so far, and all of them have been placed in successful top drone companies across country. Now, I would like to hand over the session to Mr. Leo Peter Charles.
Thank you so much, Prajwal, for that introduction. I would, before I begin, I would like to thank the management, staff, and students for participating, and primarily the management for agreeing to collaborate for this webinar of BGMIT. It's a very interesting time to live in at this point. We are seeing technology upheaval in a very, very large sense, and drones are playing a very crucial part in the Industry 4.0 space. And urban mobility is undergoing very drastic transformation with AI backed cars, even ships, unmanned ships, and then the drone taxi, as we call it, becoming a reality over the last 4 years. And it's a very interesting time also to be in, because a lot of people are now able to afford these in the urban space, and this is pitched as the one of the predominant solutions for the congestion and mobility challenges that we see in urban locations. So hopefully this will be interesting, and I don't put you off to sleep because it's 2 p.m. right now. You would have had your lunch and come back. I'll try to make it as interesting as possible. I've been always thrilled about this space, being able to have your very own personalized aircraft parked in your garage or on your rooftop, and then I don't know how many of you've seen Jetsons, the cartoon from way back in the 1990s and the 2000s. That is what we envisioned, the jet is on the ground, but then flying, right? And that way, I think that age is now coming with better electrical power sources, better materials, better avionics. It will be just a matter of few more years before we start seeing traffic cops in the air. But till then, let us enjoy and how we could take it forward, right? And okay, by the time he fixes that, let's take a look at what it is. And it's a really the most advanced technology in mobility is Tesla's autonomous cars, where you could just put in the destination and then sleep at the back of the wheel, which would have been considered, but then now that is possible today. That way, urban mobility going to the air is the future. It's more efficient, more faster, safer, because if you take in all modes of transport, aircraft is still the safest way to travel, right? So that way this will be more safer, and then a lot of the R&D is going into propulsion technology, where we will have better payload capability, better range, and trying to keep this entire thing inside the ambit of green energy. I think they're still trying to figure out. Let me just try to share. Okay, so we are back on track. Abhilash, next slide. So that's me. I think they've done the introduction, so I'm quickly going to skip that part. But I've been in this space for almost 10 years now. You could say my first love is drone space, where I've been building different organizations the drone industry, and then going forward the drone taxi industry at large. Apart from that, I love to talk to youngsters and then share ideas, because today we need more people in this segment, and that's why we've been running this college webinar series as part of our JMA ecosystem support endeavor program, where we're trying to instill in students and aspiring entrepreneurs at large to take up this domain and then build useful use cases or applications out of it. Next slide. So these are a few of the topics that I will cover. I will initially cover what are drones, so that you have a basic understanding of it, and then we will move to urban air mobility, try to understand the market size. Let us see a few use cases, what it takes to make the industry happen, and then at a larger scale. And then I'll talk about my company, JN Aerospace, that I started in 2019. What's the advanced pilot training course, and also the Flight 100 program, uh, where we are talking about building 100 entrepreneurs and helping them start 100 companies in the drone space across the globe. Next slide. So what are drones? This word is now become more common with COVID. Recently, I even addressed another webinar which said how COVID accelerated the development of drones in India. This word has become now very common. It was initially common in marriage halls, where you would see that four rotor quadcopter, white or black one, whatever color is irrelevant, flying around inside and taking pictures, and then kids would be running towards the operator, or the drone pilot who would be flying it. This is a common scene that you could envision. This is all pre-COVID, right? Now that is mostly not possible. So given that, so everything that flew and then was controlled remotely became a drone. Control command and control link, where uh, don't bother about the connections. I think it started to rain here, so it might be a slight glitch. Kindly bear with me for that. So the command and control link, where the pilot flies it through a ground control station, and then you have radio waves that transmit data from the ground station to the drone, and then performs the necessary maneuvers. Now, what we specialize, or I specialize in, and what JMA works with, is the unmanned aerial vehicle or the remotely piloted aircraft systems, right? And these are generally called drones, but then we call them UAVs. That's the right term. And today, when UAVs, when it started in India, it started with some minor R&D, then moved to military, and then moved to cinematography. And today, it's there in agriculture, industrial inspection, crop imaging, surveillance, search and rescue, ultrasonic thickness testing, concrete testing, uh, windmill thermal imaging, solar panel inspection, so on and so forth. They even flew recently. You might have seen either on Insta or on Facebook, where they flew drones over a live volcano in Iceland to study about it. So the application is now become endless, and that's the beauty of it. I always keep saying one thing: drone application is limited by human imagination. Somebody imagined that they could put a drone on Mars, and then they are doing like the seventh sortie at this point of time. So that's the beauty about it, right? You could put multiple different payloads on it, and then you can perform multitudes of applications, and the platform is always the same. And various, it can be short duration, it can be long duration. There are drones that could fly for weeks together. So that's the beauty of the entire platform and the technology that it comes with. Next slide, please. So these are the types of drones broadly classified. There are
We kindly request the students to stay online.
Yeah,
Mr. Lee is having a glitch.
I'm back. Thank you, Praveen. Sorry for that, everyone. The line got cut because of the wind and rain. I'm on mobile connection now, so that should be fine. Yeah, so these are the types of drones that are there, and then fixed wing is the most predominant kind of system that was initially used. It has a longer range. It flies like an aeroplane. You need a runway to either take off or land. Even if you're hand launching it, you will need a clear path for it to take off and all of that. So then we had the rotary wing. Initially, it started with the helicopter. So this can take off vertically and land vertically, and then it can hover in a place. And then somebody said, okay, let's put multiple rotors and see how it can work. Then you have the multi-rotor variants that came in, which have better stability, and which is not susceptible to high gust winds, right? So that way, those drones came in. So these three things: the fixed wing, the single rotor, and the multi-rotor, form the primary base of all drone tech and drone configurations. And later we got the hybrid VTOL. Now, what the hybrid VTOL did, it combined the range of the fixed wing and the endurance, coupled with the vertical takeoff and landing capability of the multi-rotor. Now, the problem with fail-safes with multi-rotor is, if any one of the motor stops, the drone will just drop down. Right now, we have other tech to make it stay up, but then if in majority of the cases, if a rotor stops, then the drone is just a rock in the sky and will fall down. So that way, it doesn't have glide capability. So the hybrid VTOL gives you range, gives you endurance, gives you vertical takeoff and landing. And during a fail-safe scenario, where you have the multi-rotor stop, you can still glide and come back. So those options are all available, and that's the most preferred variant at this point of time, where endurance and range is of a larger requirement. And then we have this bird, the ornithopter. It flies like a bird. You would have seen this in the movie Uri if you watched the movie. This bird is predominantly used in agricultural land, wherever a farmer owns 10,000s of hectares of land. Chasing away birds with scarecrow is not efficient at this point of time. So they use this bird. This is a predator, is a peregrine falcon. It's based on, the design is based on that. So that will fly and then chase away birds. They also use that at the Heathrow airport to chase away birds, so that aircrafts don't have bird strike, right? And then we have aerostats. So this is a balloon, and you would have mostly seen this. Aerostats are also now made into drones wherever an application of endurance is required. Let's say the aerostat has to be, or a device has to be up in the air for 10, 15, 20 hours, or even weeks. That they have aerostats up there flying slowly, but then having a payload that can monitor that region. Very effectively used in the borders, or at areas that need long time monitoring. So these are the different types of drones. You can always venture into any of it as and when you think of starting a company in the drone segment. Next slide, please. So what is urban air mobility? Now, there's urban mobility that started long back. Now, the urban air mobility initially only consisted of helicopters, right? And now that entire concept has been repurposed to take into account autonomous passenger carrying or cargo carrying air vehicles for transportation. Now, why do we call these taxis or air taxis as drone taxis? Is because nobody is flying them. You sit in it, you punch in the coordinates of where you want to be, and the drone flies there, right? Even when you want to hire a drone taxi, you just open your phone, put in the details of where you are at the nearest landing pad. That could be any high-rise building with a helipad on it for at the present, because that's the most suitable infrastructure that is available. And it will come there, and then you can hop in and then reach to your destination. And most of the urban air mobility, or the drone taxis as we call them for ease of use, they're all electric powered. So that way, most of the energy is green. They all run on batteries, and these batteries are charged by solar at most places. So that way, they're trying to fully make the entire drone-based or autonomous urban air mobility go green. And these systems will have backups. They will have parachute system. They will have airbags for cushioning impact in case something goes wrong. But that's a very, very low probability, because if whatever clearances normal aircrafts go through, these also will have to go through that, and even more, because nobody is actually flying these systems. Next slide, please. So let's look at the market. It's very important to look at any market before we go further, is because if we have to step into it, then it will become important for us to understand what's the benefit for us out of stepping into that technology, or how can somebody make a business use case out of it. Because if you don't have a business use case, generally tech doesn't come out, right? So the market is growing at a compounding annual growth rate of almost 13.5%. This is a very good number. It was 2.6 billion 2020. This is the amount of money that's been invested into that market, and operations have already started in China, in South Korea. Was to start in Dubai last year, but then because of the pandemic, that got pushed, and then testings have been going on in the United States. We have major players like West, Lilium, EHang, Volocopter, Airbus, and Boeing being part of this, where they're looking to make this available. And what this is also doing is it is taking or eating into the chartered flight segment at some point of time. So in case somebody wants to charter, like if I'm not sure how many of you have seen the air taxi in Bangalore, where you had a helicopter ride from the airport to different locations of Bangalore. So as a simple example, from the Kempegowda International Airport at Devran, if you have to reach Electronic City, the cost of the cab is almost the same as going in a helicopter, right? Because the challenge is you would still take 2.5 hours to reach Silk Road or those junctions, but in a heli you could do it under 25 minutes. So time saved is value for money, and then you can always be to your meeting on time. So C-suite officials, high top-ranking officials of any business always preferred that. And now drone taxi is going to take away that space. And also, what this helps in one more segment is delivery of packages, where you don't have to go through all the traffic jam. You could have major hubs where movement of logistics becomes very easier. And that is also going to be one of the major segments, because today e-commerce, everything is e-commerce. With the pandemic and the lockdown, everything is moved to e-commerce, and we are ordering day in and day out over on Amazon, Flipkart, and all of the rest of the e-commerce portals, right? So that it is going to become one of the crucial technology for the logistics chain companies. Next slide, please. So as we are also looking at different markets, is very important to also understand this is a high capital industry. You can't just start off with a you can always start off with a concept, but then you will need a lot of capital to start producing prototypes, minimum of at least 10 million USD before you can start producing multiple prototypes and then move to testing phase. Apart from that, what it can also do, since the entire system is autonomous, traffic management is going to become easier, and the competition in it in the initial phase is going to be very less because of the capital intensive nature of the business. But it will pick up. And last time when I had a meeting with Ford Mobility is a company in the Ford group that offers taxi services, and they had a very interesting use case. Airport to any meeting, any multinational company offices, and back to the airport and back to your hometown. So let's say somebody in Delhi wants to come to Bangalore, finish a meeting, and then go to Chennai, finish a meeting, and go back. They should be able to do it in a day's time. So what happens is the flight time between Delhi and Bangalore to Chennai is all fixed, right? What is the variable is how much time the person might spend in traffic because of because Bangalore airport is in the outskirts. So to avoid that, you can have drone taxis ferrying these people to multiple meetings and back to the airport, where they could catch a flight and go back to their hometown. Right? So that is one of the interesting use cases, and Ford Mobility was always interested in that. Next slide, please. So we were seeing a lot of use cases, or I was talking about a lot of use cases, and now we can take a look at it. One is goods delivery, as I was talking to you about. Now, you could have large scale packages move faster. For this, definitely the how our houses, apartments, offices are built have to be changed. You will need dedicated landing zones for these cargoes to come and land, and then higher safety for that. That is always there, but then this will make it easier. Transporting medical supplies, like how we've seen the biggest problem in India for oxygen became the logistics headache, right? And because of that, it took a lot of time. You had to have trains carry those trucks, then trucks move to hospitals. If you had a network of drone cargo delivery system, you could have moved it instantaneously, and then you could do it faster, because trucks can do what, maximum 60 70 kilometers an hour. These drones can do way more than 150 kilometers an hour. So you could reach those speeds, and then since it's the air, you can do it faster. Now, in terms of public safety, let's say you have to airlift in terms during emergency, you can always do that. That is one important thing. Also, you could do large scale traffic assessment, and also maybe crowd monitoring, where cops, if you've seen those sci-fi movies where cops are flying around in cars, you could do that. That's always a possibility, where they get a bird's eye view. That is currently done in helicopters. These drones will replace that. Emergency services, yes. Let's say you have a flood, you have people stranded in smaller islands, you have a landslide, you have earthquakes, and you want to move people. This becomes the most easiest way to do it, because generally in those scenarios, first thing that gets cut off is connectivity via road. So before people clear out roads and get work done, it would be too late. First-hand experience I have when I was in Uttarakhand, helping the NDRF, 6 bridges got washed away, and it took them a lot of time to set up those bridges. Right? If you had these drones that could fly in those locations, you could send out essential supplies to regions that have been cut off from the main supply route. So that's another good use case. Next slide. And another thing recently that I saw that EHang was doing is they use their drones coupled with tanks that contain fire suppressants that could fly on high-rise near high-rise buildings. And let's say there's a fire in the 40th or the 50th floor. Today we have apartments all being built at that height, right? So by the time somebody from down went there and could do a rescue, it would be impossible. So if we have like a fire flying fire service or something like that, whatever we could call it, I don't have a name for it yet. Firefighters could just hop on and then can go to whichever the altitude is, and then they'll be able to suppress fire and also be able to spot survivors. So that is also possible. And what we could also do is in connecting tier 3 and tier 2 cities. So what happens is, let's say if you have to go to Ballari or some location like that, wherever there's not an airport, but the nearest airport is say 200 kilometers. You have to land there and then take another, you have to take the road. Instead of that, you land in that airport, take a drone taxi and reach your destination. 200 kilometers can be covered within very short span of time in the air, and it becomes more viable as well. So that's another space where you have both manned and unmanned space integrated, and you can use that segment as well. Last, of course, all of it put together is the passenger transport, where we could have passenger services for 2 to 5 people going ahead. Next slide. So Airbus was working on two concepts, the Vimana and the City Airbus. Vimana is a two-seater. The City Airbus should be a four-seater. Last time I talked to them. The City Airbus is a little bigger concept, and they have been working on it. They've been running tests in the US and in the Europe. It's pretty interesting. They are envisioning something like a small mini bus kind of concept that can do hopping between stations. Next slide. Let's take a look at the video. Abhilash, you will have to unmute yourself for the sound. It's okay, you can play. So this is a rendering, but then this is what Airbus envisions will happen in the future. You can see an ambulance, you can see a drone taxi. And then AI-based UTM for collision avoidance and being able to reach to your destination in the fastest way. So this is what Airbus envisions and then how they are working. Next slide, please. So Uber is also working on the drone taxi concept. So they're working with a number of companies to build these drone taxis, where they could use this instead of the regular cars for their services that they provide. So they're also having their tests that will go up, and then flying will be up in Dallas, Los Angeles, and Melbourne by 2023. That's what Uber's promising. Let's take a look at that. Next slide. So here we see the person booking the Uber air taxi or the drone taxi. And then, as I said, the existing infrastructure is mostly helipads that will be used. And then you can just walk into any location, move to the last floor, and then take your taxi to your destination. So this will be like miniature airports on top of buildings. That's a very nice concept. So anybody having or working in the real estate segment can also look at this as one of the business use cases where you build drone taxi pods or skyports, as we call them, for you, the taxi service providers to use it. And this will enable this. The other benefit of this is expansion of business also becomes very easy, right? That way, if the centralization of businesses in urban population or urban location will reduce, and we will see more of businesses moving out because commute and connectivity becomes easier. Another company is the Germany-based Volocopter that's building taxis, which is purely a multi-rotor configuration, and they are having limited range at this point of time, but they are looking at a different use case for short hop on and hop off kind of transit system. Let's take a look at the video. This is not rendered. This is the actual test flight that they are doing. And these systems are more suitable to have it on top of your houses as well, because it's multi-rotor. It can do VTOL capability. It can do VTOL transition, and the only larger part about is that entire propulsion ring that it has over the drone. Next slide. This is Joby Aviation, based out of Santa Cruz in California. They have a tilt rotor concept that they are using, and which they are working on. A lot of investment has happened in these into these companies. They are trying for a long range concept. Let's take a look at it. So here you can see how it's transitioning. And then it achieves full transition. So now it primarily works like a aeroplane itself. So the best part is you don't have to get a pilot's license to fly. You just hop onto it and then it flies, minimizing a lot of human error in the entire process. So that's another advantage. And then when you have to come to land, you don't need a longer runway. You can just transition and land vertically. Next slide. This is EHang, one of the very first companies that achieved this capability of drone taxi. It's a Chinese-based company. They've already been operating in China. They have now signed to operate in South Korea and then in Dubai as well. These drones are also being customized to work with the fire department for firefighting projects. It comes both in a two-seater and a four-seater variant. Even a concept like a drone taxi station, like how we have the metro, that is also very much possible, where you have these drones where you go in and then climb onto a drone and go to the next location. Or here also you can see another thing is the foldable arm concept, where you could actually park your drone in the parking lot, and then the arms can open up once you're going to fly. And And then since it uses advanced GPS and all of that, you have better accuracy at where it lands, and the technology is also encrypted, so you don't have to worry about somebody overriding the transmission and then taking control. They are one of the first successful and commercially viable company that built this capacity, and they've been demonstrating this technology all over the planet. Next slide. So what is needed to offer UAM services at scale? Now, one is you will need to have the infrastructure. You'll need to anyways have a very good drone and a very solid use case, either in passenger services or in logistics. These are the most predominant use cases that will come up. Second is you will need to have the infrastructure. You will need to have the skyports. You will need to have the unmanned traffic management system in place. You will need to be able to have the insurance policy for that in place. All of this is one. And then you will have to work out the costing. Second is you will have to, third is you'll have to get this integrated with the existing aircraft traffic management systems. Also, it will also come under the purview of city regulation. So you will have to have new laws also come into place. And all of this needs to be autonomous. For it to be autonomous, it needs to be AI backed, and it has to have very powerful computers on board, because processing cannot happen elsewhere, and you can't use that data. That time lag can will be fatal at some point of time. So it's very good to have processing on board, and we have powerful computers now that have been very much miniaturized that could go onto it. Similarly, how we do it on our normal lower weight category drones, the same way you will need that as well. And then very good regulations will have to come into picture. And there are other things also. One is kite flying. That will be one challenge. In India, we have a lot of that. Second would be the weather. That might also be a challenge. And access to skyports also might be. So you will have to build this entire ecosystem. This is the entire ecosystem. You can take one part of it and then specialize on that, or you can build drone, or you can build the UTM. So all of that option is predominantly available. So that is the entirety of the presentation. I'll just take a few minutes to talk about the organization, and then we can take questions. Next slide. So JMA I started in 2019 with the sole purpose of helping other drone companies scale up. Because today we have companies that offer products, there are companies that offer services, but there had to be someone in between that could help them connect with themselves, connect with the government, connect with foreign OEMs and clients, and also help them, and also somebody who could constantly listen to their problems and then create services for them so that they could scale up. So that was the whole idea behind why I wanted to start JMA. And we initially started with drone pilot training because pilots were in large demand, and the industry was suffering because of that. And then we started with infrastructure support. We have a 8-acre test site in Bangalore, which we give to the drone companies to test their drones. Then we also create industry academia collaboration for R&D outsourcing, and for creation of specialized skilled personnel apart from the drone pilots. And then we also work with the government, with these drone companies, to create large-scale business use cases for them. Because the government at this point of time is looking to use drones a lot. So we do that. Next slide. These three things are predominantly what we offer at this point of time. One would be the advanced drone pilot training and EdTech programs to create that cream of skilled personnel that could help the drone industry scale up. And then we do aerospace consultancy, where we support them with infrastructure support, market analysis, business consultation, government liaising, R&D support, in all of those, whatever is required on the outside to help those companies grow. And then we have the RC flying field, where we also help budding aero modelers grow, because that is the core of this industry. And if that can grow, definitely the drone industry will grow multifold by itself. So this is what we offer at this point of time. Next. So this is our drone pilot training program. It's built around the suggestions given by the industry. We are the only organization in the country offering this extensive drone program for almost 25 days, with 15 hours of real-time flying, 15 hours of simulation flying, soft skill training, specialized training for agriculture, cinematography, and mapping. We do this with all inbuilt drones, in-house drones that we build ourselves. And our pilots have trained people, and our pilots themselves have more than sorry, excuse me. So our pilots also have almost 1,000 hours of flying training or training experience that they put into. So this is what we offer. This is our program. This is best suited for people who have graduated recently, or students who are in the final year, or those who are looking for a job, because we predominantly train for the industry itself. And this is a nice program to be in. And then the best job in the world, I would say, you get to travel all over the place, go to places you would have never visited or thought of visiting in your life, and then fly your drones. It's one of the coolest jobs in the world, and I love doing it. Next slide, please. So the Drone 100 or the Flight 100 program is where we will be training 100 aspiring entrepreneurs from across the globe on a 45-day boot camp to help them build drone companies, be it manufacturing companies, be it application companies, be it support industries manufacturing parts, so that we could create more robust drone ecosystem, as well as limit the dependency on completely on China. So that is what this program is built on, where we will be taking you through all aspects of business, so that you understand what it takes to build a company and then make it successful. So that's it for the presentation. Next slide. So you could always write to us on our email, or you can always contact us on all of our social media, on all the social media platforms. We are present on that. You can also leave us a message on at janeaerospace.co.in. We will get back to you, and you can follow us on social media platform for upcoming webinars. And we also put up a lot of information on newer drones that are being developed across the planet, and that way you will always stay up to date in this multi-billion-dollar drone industry. So we can take questions. Thank you. So we have a startup in the eVTOL space. Mr. Satyavrata is here from Bonvi Aero. I hope I've pronounced that right. Also, just quickly, there's a feedback form link. Kindly fill it, and so that you might receive your certificates, and then we will be able to send you any information in the future. We can take questions. Abhilash, you can end the presentation. If anyone has a question, you can either type it in the chat box, or you can ask the question.
Hi, Leo. Satya this
Yeah.
side.
Hi,
Hi.
Satya. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Doing well.
All right. Thanks, and great to be part of this webinar. Really excited to see many students who have joined. On behalf of just students, I am asking a question. Okay, like
Yeah.
I believe if you can throw some lights on how these students can actually be groomed to be a future entrepreneur when they're when they join your course, or how they can actually start a career in this domain, because mm, uh, when the students out of the college go for a drone industry, they actually face a lot of challenges, as in it's not very easy for anybody out of academic to go to drone industry and start working right out there. So what do provide them in the part of the training that makes them very comfortable when they go for working there?
So we say being a drone pilot is the best way to get into the drone industry, because without the pilot, nothing is possible in the industry. And since the government is taking up large scale projects like this Swamvitva program, or even many of the law enforcement agencies now procuring drones, or even the anti-Naxal operations that go about, which where they are procuring a lot of drones. So all these places you need people to fly them. That's the best way to start, and that's what we do in the drone space. But if you ask me in general, the best thing to do would be to first learn how to put together a standard drone that you might get in any electronic store. The F450 frame and those motors, and then put a Pixoc together. This they could start in the second year of college, and then start working with drone companies as interns to build up their design capability, to build up avionics capability, to build up flight test capabilities. Now, the beauty of the drone industry is they consider your experience of flying while you're in college as experience, right? Because in the interview, you will have the normal HR round and all of that, and written exam, but then you will still be taken to a field and they will still ask you to fly. And if you can prove your worth at the field, you will get selected. So that way, if you develop enough skill set by the time or students can develop enough skill set by the time they graduate from college, they will be able to make an entry into the drone industry. So once you get enrolled or get into the industry, it becomes easier for them to move to different branches depending upon their background and what they really want to do. So let's say somebody wants to go into design. You can fly for 2 years. You already have 2 years of experience with the product. You can always go into product design and help the team there build better drones going forward. Or you can go into post processing, or you could go into avionics, and where you better understand IMUs, GPS, better understand obstacle avoidance, obstacle detection, and how to work in more difficult scenarios where magnetic field interference is a lot, and how you could build non-linear flight control system. So all of this is better done when you have a lot of flying experience, because in you will be able to, I would say, instinctively analyze future products because of the experience that you already have in the field. So take me for example, I would be able to tell in a fixed wing if it's nose heavy, tail heavy, if it's stalling, if there's too much flutter, if it will crash or not. Because of flying for 10 years, we will be able to understand this road, like just like how somebody drives a bike and then they will know if there's something's wrong with the bike when the engine makes a weird noise, right? Apart from the normal tuning. So that way, if they could put their time and effort in, say, from second year onwards, and pick up all the necessary skills, including flying drones, then it becomes more easier for them to venture into the drone industry, as against somebody who freshly wants to just pass out of college and then get into the drone industry. Hopefully, I've answered the question.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And I believe also if you can tell a little bit about the minimum requirement that industry do have for let's say, for example, a drone pilot, right, to start his career in the industry. What do you see as the minimum qualification criteria that the industry demands, right, for a drone pilot, to be taken into the industry?
Got it. So one is a minimum of 20 hours of flying. That is first. Second is very sound understanding of the drone and its functions. Third is very sound understanding of the regulations under the unmanned aircraft rules or systems 2021. And fourth is very good communication skills. If you have all of these, then the drone industry is very much willing to take you on board. Specific use cases is again an added advantage. Like if you know how to do mapping with a drone, how to work with a PPK system, how to work with a RTK system, how to work with ground control points. All of this, if you know, there's an added advantage, but that can always be trained within a very short span of time. What the drone industry is hesitant to do is do the long-term training, where it will take at least 20-25 days or even 30 days, depending upon the candidate, where they will have to spend 1 month's salary for just that training. Whereas in specific applications, it's more of a day or 2 day of training. Like for crop dusting or spraying in agriculture, if a person can handle a drone really well, agricultural spraying is very easy. You just need to use common sense at the field when there are obstacles, and then you need to get the work with the SOP that the company already gives. So that way it becomes easier. But the major part for them to take in somebody as a drone pilot would be that 20 hours of flying and then being able to work with Pixot based systems.
Fantastic. And as drones are coming actually in the in the reality, and more businesses are getting a lot of benefit out of it. Really, if we look at the Samitwa scheme, where there every property owners are going to get a property card, right? And this data is
Correct.
going to be powered by drones. It's a massive drive in terms of how many drones and what, and hence regulations comes into picture, right? And
Correct.
if you see Indian scenarios, most of us are unaware of regulations, and we don't really, if there is a loophole in the regulation, we try to go through that. We always try to bypass. And what do this generation and these what do really people need to understand, or let's say in your training program, what type of understanding do you give them, where they really truly understand the regulation, they go through entire process, and even they try to write or rewrite the regulation, or volunteer and develop such new regulations? Because I believe whatever regulation is there today is going to iteratively change, and in future, down the line, in few years, it is going to completely be the new things in the future. So what kind of programs do you, even if you don't have, but what type of programs do you aim to also have in the future, or something that you have right now that you train people?
So we do take people through the new regulations and then teach them about it. The challenge with the regulation is majority of it is non-operational. So that is a problem, but we definitely train. But what we also teach is best industry practice. Like as an aero modeler, we have a lot of discipline that we follow. Right? We won't fly everywhere and anywhere. Safety becomes the first priority wherever we fly. Uh, we don't do dangerous stunts. We will not fly if we know the aircraft cannot take off. We will never do that. We will not push the aircraft beyond its sane limits, I would tell. And then we have all the sets of checks that we do. Uh, so these best practices that I have learned from the aero modeling space, we teach them. Apart from that, we also teach them the standardization of all checks, be it pre-flight, post-flight, all of that we train them. And then with terms of regulation, we tell them what is there in black and white. But the challenge I also see is when the regulation infrastructure is still not in place, it becomes a little trickier. Now, let's say NPNT regulation, to enforce it, it becomes a little trickier because the entire thing is now was for earlier with DGCA is now with QCI, and the process is going. Everybody has to go through again, and with the car, earlier car was there, and then now we have US 2021. So there's very drastic changes that happened within a very short span of time. So it will take time for people to adhere to it, but then we always say safety is the first priority. If you are not confident of flying, do not take off. That's what we always teach the pilots when we train them.
Thank you so much, Leo. And this is, there's a great amount of takeaways or a lot of things that, now discussed in this webinar. I believe most of the students are getting that out from, from the discussions. And I will stop here asking questions
Yes.
and others can ask. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, if we don't have questions, we can then conclude. I would like to thank the management of the college for the opportunity, the staff and the students for being cooperative in attending the program. Prajwal, anything else? Is anybody from the college going to speak?
Yes, sir. We are having a vote of thanks.
Okay.
So now I
Good
would like to, yeah,
afternoon, everyone.
I would like to invite Mr. Ramgo with Patil for the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Ramanagoda Patil, and I am here to prevent the vote of thank for today's webinar. I would like to thank our guest webinar speaker, Mr. Leopatra Charles, for visiting and enlightening us with their knowledge. Today's webinar was full of knowledge and interesting things. Once again, I would like to thank Mr. Leopatra Charles for taking out time for their busy schedule and enlightening us with knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would also thank our principal, Dr. SBK sir, for giving a permission to organizing this webinar. I want to thank the all faculty and students community who really worked hard to make this event successful. Also, thank you to all the present for paying your attention and learning. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
I kindly request everyone to fill in the feedback form and send it across. This actually helps us to better ourselves in the webinars that are coming in the future, as well as it also helps us as an organization to develop our skills, and this would definitely help other webinars in the future as well. So we kindly request all students to fill up the feedback form, and your certificates will be delivered in four working days. If in case you have not received your certificates, do ping us on info@jnaerospace.co.in, and we will check in as to what is the problem. And if in case the problem is with the emails, we will get back with you on a call and we will sort them out. If anyone has anything, you can let us know further, or drop us a message, or you can also drop us a mail. Either will work. Thank you everyone for joining this webinar, and I hope it was very fruitful for all. Thank you so much. Good day. Bye-bye.